we've talked a lot in recent years about two very major threats to the survival of the human species in its present form: global warming and nuclear weapons. I also saw a recent interview with you where you referred to a third, what the WHO and some others have called an infodemic. So especially since the election of Trump and with the decline of print media, there's been more discussion about the spread of misinformation, bad information, propaganda, fake news. So this is something I guess I'm wondering, since it's something you spent a lot of your career on, can you talk about where you see what you see the sources of this infodemic being?
The infodemic is worse than dissemination of inaccurate news. There has actually been a virtual collapse of the environment for rational discussion, not over the whole society, but substantially. There's just no arena of rational discourse on almost anything. Take the COVID epidemic, very serious. It's not as bad as what you just mentioned. It's not as bad as heating the environment, nuclear weapons, but it's pretty severe. The latest estimate of deaths by London economists, careful estimate, says it's probably around 15 million people and increasing. It's not trivial. The United States just passed the 500,000 mark. Well, it's actually higher. That's the counted deaths. Actual ones are a couple 100,000 higher. Take a look every day in the New York Times, probably other newspapers. They publish a map, global map of the global hotspots. Okay? Take a look at it. The United States stands out in the world. There is no other functioning society that's marked red on the map. Now, if you look more closely at the United States, it's not the whole country. It's the Southeast, the old Confederacy during the Civil War, and a couple of other rock-ribbed Republican states, Wyoming, Idaho, and so on. In those states, hospitals are collapsing under the crush of COVID victims, virtually 100% unvaccinated. The same states are subjected to a barrage of claims that COVID was created by China to destroy the United States. The vaccine is invented by state authorities who want to control you, or maybe Bill Gates who wants to put a chip in your head, or Trump fosters this. They worship Trump. I mean, there's no rational discourse. And the gap between, this is incidentally a very large, it's probably the base of the Republican Party. Majority of Republicans say they don't want to be vaccinated. It's just a hoax, take something more serious, destroying the environment. Major poll just came out from Pew Research, major polling agency, in which they asked people, they gave people a choice of 15 serious problems, asked them to rank them in terms of urgency, divided by Republicans and Democrats. Among Republicans, the very last one at the bottom was global warming. At the top was illegal immigrants and the debt. The debt, incidentally, became a problem last November 4th. Up until then, the debt was fine. Republicans were creating it to enrich very rich people, so it was no problem. November 4th, Biden took it over, might use it to help others, poor people, terrible, major problem. It's not that the people who said that actually believe it. It's that's what they hear in the bubble in which they're contained. You listen to the Murdoch TV station, Fox News, you read the Murdoch press, that's what you hear. And when you're stuck in that bubble, that's what you believe. So the real problems are illegal immigrants, terrible problem. The debt suddenly became a problem. And at the bottom of the list is destroying the environment in which life can be sustained. All of these are signs of the collapse, not only of the arena for rational discourse, but just general social collapse. The social order is collapsing. It didn't just happen by itself. It happened because of a plague that was set in motion 40 years ago. We discuss a lot of it in the book. It's the plague of neoliberalism. It was actually started in the 70s, a massive business campaign to institute it, but it took off with Reagan and Thatcher. And if you look at their prescriptions, it's perfectly obvious what's going to happen. So Reagan's inaugural address said, the government is the problem, not the solution. Decisions have to be taken out of the hands of government. Well, they don't stop being made. Where are they going to be made? In the private sector. They're going to be made by powerful corporate tyrannies, which is what corporations are, unaccountable to the public. The government, of course, has a flaw. It's partially accountable to the public, can be controlled somewhat by the public. Private tyrannies are free, no accountability. Second point was Milton Friedman, the economic guru, who pronounced that corporations have one responsibility to their owners, shareholders, period, and management, nothing else. Corporate rights are a gift from the public. There's plenty of advantages that come from incorporating. It's a gift, but they don't have any responsibility, just to themselves. Put these two things together, hand decisions over to private tyrannies who have no responsibility other than to enrich themselves. Margaret Thatcher comes along and says, there's no society, just individuals somehow managing on the market that they're supposed to survive in. First step that both Reagan and Thatcher took was to destroy any possible defense against this assault. Their first steps were to attack labor unions with actually illegal measures like strikebreakers. That opened the door to corporations do the same. The one way people have to defend themselves, namely by organizing, taken away. Put all this together. Do you have to be a genius to figure out what's going to happen? Well, actually, 40 years later, it was studied by the Rand Corporation, super respectable American corporation. They tried to estimate the transfer of wealth, robbery, we should call it, the transfer of wealth from the lower 90% of the population, middle class and working class, to the very top, which turns out to be a fraction of 1%. Their estimate was about $50 trillion during the 40 years of neoliberalism. It's a vast underestimate. They didn't include other things, which are now on the front pages.